The scent of blood filled the air, sharp, metallic, and cold. It mingled with the dampness of rain seeping through the cracks in the broken stained glass windows. I stood frozen, my back pressed against a cracked marble pillar, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might shatter the silence. The grand hall, once a place of splendor, was now a tomb. The marble floor beneath the pale moonlight looked almost silver, but it was streaked with red. My blood. I saw him. Ryan. He knelt in the pool of crimson, his arms wrapped around my lifeless body, her body, the one I had only moments ago called my own. His dark hair clung to his face, soaked from the rain pouring through the shattered roof. His hands trembled as he cradled me, his voice cracking with every word that left his lips. "No, no, you can't die," he whispered, his breath hitching as if the air itself betrayed him. This wasn't supposed to happen. "Sora, please." I felt it. His tears, hot and desperate, falling onto my cold cheek. But it wasn't mine anymore. I was a ghost watching my own end, powerless to reach out, to speak, to tell him I was still here, somehow. I wanted to hate him. I thought I hated him. The man who had betrayed me. The man whose choices had led me to this death. But this was not the face of a traitor. His anguish was real, raw. And just as the truth began to dawn on me, just as the weight of my mistake crushed my soul, light exploded through the hall. Blinding. All-consuming. Pain like fire tearing through my chest. Then. Nothing. When I opened my eyes, the world was new. Gone were the marble pillars, the blood, the shattered glass. I gasped, my lungs filling with air so sharp it burned. A ceiling of dark wooden beams stretched above me, the scent of old wood and damp stone filling my senses. The walls were made of gray stone, cold and unyielding, and the heavy curtains let in slivers of moonlight that danced across the floor. And then I felt it. Strong arms holding me upright. "Are you all right?" The voice was unfamiliar, low, measured, almost cold. I blinked, trying to bring his face into focus. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, with features carved as if from stone. His eyes, icy gray, piercing, studied me with a guarded intensity. His touch wasn't tender like Ryan's had been. It was steady, assessing. My voice came out hoarse, foreign. It wasn't my voice at all. Panic surged in my chest. I pushed away from him, stumbling back, my hands flying up to my face. The skin beneath my fingertips felt wrong. The bone structure sharper. My hair heavier. A mirror stood in the corner, and my reflection stared back at me. Someone else's reflection. High cheekbones. Thin, pale lips. Eyes like polished obsidian. Lynne. I was Lynne, the daughter of the man Ryan despised. My enemy's family. The man, Cain, I realized, watched me in silence, his brow furrowed slightly as if piecing together a puzzle. "You fell," he said finally, his voice dropping lower. "You shouldn't be up so soon." Rest? Rest? How could I rest when nothing made sense? I was supposed to be dead. I had been dead. The room seemed to close in on me, the weight of the stone walls pressing against my chest. Outside, the rain tapped against the window like fingers trying to claw their way in. What is this? I thought, my heart racing. What am I supposed to do now? I looked at Cain again, his rigid stance, the tension in his jaw. He didn't trust me. I could see it in his eyes, but neither did he hate me. Not yet. I had been given a second chance. A twisted one. A cruel one. But a chance. And as the storm raged beyond the walls, I swore to myself, I will find out the truth. I will find out why I died. And I will decide who deserves my loyalty now. The room was silent except for the soft creak of the wooden floor beneath my bare feet. The scent of old wood and faint lavender filled the air, mingling with something colder, something that felt like memory and regret. I stood before the mirror, unmoving. The silvered glass reflected a stranger. High cheekbones, too sharp to be mine. Thin, pale lips that pressed together as if holding back words. Long, dark hair cascading over narrow shoulders. Eyes, black as night, devoid of the warmth I remembered seeing in my own. "Lynne, this is me now?" I raised a trembling hand, fingers brushing against my cheekbone. The skin felt real, solid, but I recoiled as if I'd touched fire. How could this be my face? The woman staring back at me was cold, untouchable. A face that belonged to someone who commanded fear, not love. I stepped back, breath catching in my throat. The walls of the room seemed to lean inward, the heavy curtains, the towering wardrobe with its carved symbols of Lynne's family, the dark wooden beams above my head, all pressing closer, as if the house itself judged me. Get it together, Sora, I told myself, gripping the edge of the dresser. If you fall apart now, you're finished. A soft knock at the door. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I heard voices beyond the door. Low, hurried whispers. She's different since the fall, one voice said. A woman, maybe a maid. Different? A man's voice answered, cautious. Her eyes, her voice, like she's not really her. Don't say such things. If she hears you. The voices faded as they moved down the hall, leaving behind an even deeper silence. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the soft scent of lavender rising from the blankets. My heart raced, my mind spiraling. So Lynne had fallen hard enough that death had been close, and when she slipped away, I took her place? Why? Why here? Why her? I thought of Reborn, his face twisted in grief as he held me. That image burned in my mind, clearer than anything else. The people in this house feared Lynne. I could feel it in every glance, every word spoken behind closed doors. I would have to be careful. No one could know who I truly was. The door creaked open. A young maid stepped inside, her gaze fixed on the floor. My lady, your meal is ready in the hall, she said softly, almost as if afraid to speak too loudly. I nodded, though she couldn't see. Thank you, I said, my voice gentler than Lynne's ever would have been. Her head shot up, eyes wide with surprise. For a heartbeat, she stared at me as if seeing a ghost. Then she curtsied quickly and fled. I closed my eyes, drawing in a slow, deep breath. Every word, every gesture would be watched, measured against the Lynne they knew. If I wanted to survive, I'd have to learn how to wear this face. But inside, I swore to myself, I will not become her. The house felt like a fortress, a maze of stone and shadow where even the air seemed heavy with history. The hallways stretched endlessly, lined with portraits of grim-faced ancestors. Their eyes, painted dark and deep, followed me as I passed, as if judging the imposter now wearing their descendant's face. Massive doors, carved with the family's crest, an ancient tree entwined with thorns, stood at intervals along the corridors. Every door felt like a barrier, every room like a secret I wasn't meant to know. Outside, beyond the narrow windows, the garden lay shrouded in rain. The bare branches of the old trees twisted against the gray sky. Water streamed down the stone paths, pooling in the corners, as if the earth itself wept for what this place had become. I walked these halls in silence, my footsteps echoing too loud in my ears. Breakfast was served in a room as cold as the rest of the house. The long table could have seated 20, but only 2 chairs were occupied, mine and Kane's. He sat at the head, his posture rigid, his gaze sharp beneath dark brows. He didn't speak at first, simply watched as I took my place. The food was simple: bread, fruit, tea that had long gone cold. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, Kane broke it. "You've recovered faster than expected," he said, his voice neutral, though his eyes searched mine for something. Some crack in the mask. "I feel better," I managed, though my stomach knotted with nerves. He nodded slowly, fingers drumming once against the table. "You'll need to resume your duties soon. Father won't be patient forever." I lowered my gaze to the tea, watching the pale liquid ripple slightly from my unsteady hands. Of course, duties. I didn't even know what they were. But I couldn't let him see that. Kane studied me a moment longer, then rose. "The city is hosting a gathering tonight. You will attend. It's expected." His tone left no room for argument. The hall in the city was grand in a way that felt hollow. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, their light casting fractured patterns across marble floors. The murmur of voices filled the space, mingling with the steady drum of rain against the arched windows. I stood at the edge of the room, the weight of Lynne's reputation pressing down on me. People watched. They always watched. I could feel their glances, sharp as knives, curious, wary, afraid. And then I saw him. Ryan. He stood across the hall, tall and composed, dressed in dark formal clothes that suited him too well. His hair was still damp from the rain, a few strands clinging to his forehead. Our eyes met. For a heartbeat, the world fell away. Hatred burned in his gaze, pure, unfiltered, the kind of hatred that comes from betrayal, from pain too deep to name. My breath caught. The familiar ache returned, sharp and sudden. A lump rose in my throat, and I had to fight the instinct to look away. I forced myself to meet his stare, though inside my heart screamed. He didn't see Sora. He saw Lynne, the enemy. And in his eyes, I saw my own sorrow reflected back at me. The night blurred after that. Faces, voices, polite words layered over tension. I played my part, or tried to. Smiled when required, nodded at the right moments, answered questions with as few words as possible. But all the while I felt his gaze, felt it like a weight against my skin. When the evening finally ended, and I stepped back into the rain, I let the cool drops wash over me, as if they could cleanse the storm inside. How am I supposed to survive this? The house was quieter these days, or maybe I had simply begun to listen differently. Every sound felt sharper, more meaningful. The soft shuffle of slippers on stone floors, the distant creak of old wood settling, the faint hiss of rain against the windows. I moved through the halls with measured steps, trying to remember who I had to be, and who I refused to become. The first time I spoke kindly to a servant, I saw the shock ripple through the room like a stone dropped into still water. It was in the kitchen. The air was thick with the scent of baking bread and herbs, a warmth I hadn't felt since waking in this place. I had come down to ask for tea, hoping to clear my thoughts. A young maid froze when she saw me, her eyes wide, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a tray. "My lady," she stammered, lowering her gaze. I hesitated, then forced a small, uncertain smile. "I'm sorry to disturb you. Could I have some tea, please?" Her head jerked up. She blinked, as if she wasn't sure she'd heard me correctly. "Of course, my lady," she said, voice barely above a whisper. She prepared it quickly, her movements hurried but precise, and when she handed me the cup, our fingers brushed. She flinched, as if expecting a slap or a cruel word. But I only thanked her and left, leaving behind a kitchen full of stunned silence. It was like that everywhere. I stopped barking orders. I listened. I tried, awkwardly, clumsily, to be polite. The older servants eyed me with suspicion. The younger ones watched with wary hope. It wasn't easy. I could feel the weight of Lynne's history in every glance, every tense pause when I entered a room. This wasn't a home. It was a cage, built of fear and memory. But I was determined to change it. One small kindness at a time. Days passed. One afternoon, I found myself in the inner courtyard, where a fountain trickled water into a mossy basin. The sky was gray, the air damp with the promise of more rain. I stood there, breathing in the coolness, watching the water ripple in slow circles. For a moment, I felt almost at peace. Then I heard his voice behind me. "You're different." I turned. Kane stood in the archway, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. His gaze was steady, sharper than ever. "You don't bark orders, you don't look at people like they're beneath you, you don't walk the same, you don't even speak the same way." I tried to laugh it off, though my throat felt tight. Maybe the fall knocked some sense into me. He didn't smile. "Who are you really?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. The question hung between us, heavy and dangerous. My heart pounded. He knows. Or at least he suspects. I shrugged, trying to seem casual. Whoever I was before. Maybe I didn't like her much. Maybe I wanted to be better. His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. After a long moment, he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the echo of the courtyard. When I was alone again, I sank onto the fountain's edge, staring at my reflection in the water. Who am I? A girl who died. A woman wearing a mask. Someone trying to make sense of a world that no longer made sense at all. And somewhere, beneath all that, just Sora. The night cloaked the house in a stillness that felt unnatural, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I moved through the corridors like a shadow, drawn to the one place that gave me any sense of clarity, the library. It was a vast room, lined with shelves that stretched to the ceiling. the scent of old paper and wood smoke lingering in the air. The fireplace was cold, the ashes from the last fire resting undisturbed in the hearth. A single oil lamp flickered on a nearby table, casting long, uncertain shadows across the room. I traced my fingers over the spines of books as I walked, needing the comfort of their presence. But tonight, comfort felt far away. Earlier that evening I had heard them speaking. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. I had simply been in the wrong place. Or perhaps the right place. At the right time. Mira's voice. I would have known it anywhere. She trusts me, she had said, soft and sweet, though I could hear the steel beneath her words. Ryan listens when I speak. He needs someone who can see clearly, not someone blinded by ghosts and guilt. And Ryan's voice, lower, wearier. I don't know anymore. Everything feels wrong. Mira's laughter, light but cold. That's because you care too much. Let me handle this. You have enough on your shoulders. Their footsteps faded, but their words stayed with me, a poison I couldn't shake. Mira. She had wormed her way close to him. Closer than I had ever imagined. And somehow I knew. She had played a part in that night. In my death? Kane, I said, my voice quieter than I intended. He stepped inside, closing the door with deliberate care. His eyes, silvered by the lamplight, fixed on mine. You come here often, he said. Not as a question but as an observation. I can think here, I replied, trying to sound casual. He approached slowly, his boots silent on the worn rug. And what is it you think about, Lynne? I hesitated, searching for an answer that wouldn't betray me, but Kane, as always, was already a step ahead. No, he said softly, shaking his head. You're not Lynne. Not anymore. The air between us felt heavy, charged with something unspoken. I swallowed hard. What do you mean? The night you fell, he said, voice low, steady. I was the first to reach you. I saw you, lying there, and I felt it. The moment she left, the moment you stepped in, I froze. My heart pounded so loud it seemed to echo off the stone walls. I don't know what you are, he continued, his gaze never leaving mine. But I know you are not my sister, not the one I knew. I opened my mouth, but no words came. What could I say? Kane sighed, and for the first time, I saw something shift in his expression. The sharp edges softened. There was no anger there, only truth. I don't want to expose you, he said quietly. As long as you mean no harm to this family, I will keep your secret. Relief flooded through me so fast it left me dizzy. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. Thank you, I whispered, and I meant it. His nod was slight, but it felt like a bond had been forged in that moment, wordless, fragile, but real. I don't know why you're here, Kane added, his tone thoughtful now, and I don't think you do either. But be careful, this house, this world, it has teeth. He turned, his silhouette merging with the shadows as he left the room, closing the door behind him. Alone again, I stood by the cold hearth, staring into the dark. The web of lies around me was growing tighter. But for the first time, I didn't feel entirely alone in it. There was hope in that. A small, flickering hope, but enough to keep going. The past clung to this place like ivy on stone, rooted deep, impossible to tear away without leaving scars. And yet I kept searching, pulling at those tangled vines, desperate to uncover the truth buried beneath them. Days turned into nights, and nights into restless wandering. I found myself slipping through shadowed corridors and forgotten rooms, the house revealing its secrets one cracked door at a time. In an old study, dust thick on the furniture, I discovered letters, half burned, the ink blurred by time and carelessness. Names I recognized. Ryan's among them. Notes of meetings, tense alliances, betrayals whispered between lines, but nothing clear enough to piece together what I needed. So I listened instead. Voices carried through the halls when people thought themselves alone. She deserved what she got, a guard muttered to another as they passed beneath my window one night. No one crosses Mira and walks away unscathed. My breath caught. I pressed closer to the glass, straining to hear. "I," came the reply. "But the man. He tried, didn't he? The one she tricked. What's his name? Ryan? He fought like the devil himself to stop it. Didn't matter. Mira outplayed them both. Their voices faded as they moved on, leaving me trembling in the silence that followed. Ryan. He hadn't betrayed me. He'd tried to save me, All this time, I had clung to my hate like armor. But it had been built on lies. The city streets at night offered no more comfort. I walked them when I could, hidden beneath a dark hood, the cold air sharp against my skin. The rain had stopped, but the stone still glistened under the pale moonlight. I kept to the edges, listening to drunks ramble in the alleys, merchants speak too freely at closing time, guards gossiping on their posts. Everywhere, the same thread wove through their stories. Mira. Mira the clever. Mira the beautiful. Mira the dangerous. And always, Ryan. The fool who'd trusted the wrong woman, the man broken by a loss he could not name aloud. I saw him more often now. At gatherings. In passing on the streets. At the edge of the courtyard, when our worlds brushed against each other. Each time his eyes found me, her, and held just a little longer than before. Not with hatred. Not anymore. With something else? Puzzlement. A question unspoken. A pull he didn't understand. And each time, my resolve faltered. I told myself I was only watching him to learn the truth. To finish what I'd begun. But the truth was more dangerous than that. I missed him. The real him. The one who had held me as I died. One night, I returned to the house late, the city's whispers still clinging to me like mist. I stood in the doorway of my chamber, staring out at the rain that had begun again, soft and steady. My reflection in the window was a stranger, but inside that face, I felt my heart beating faster, the weight of the past pressing down harder than ever. Mira had stolen everything from me, but I wasn't powerless. Not anymore. And neither was Ryan. The night was heavy with rain, the kind that blurred the world and masked sins in its steady roar. I kept to the shadows, the hood of my cloak drawn low as I moved through the city's narrow alleys. The air smelled of wet stone and secrets. I hadn't meant to follow them. But when I saw Mira and Ryan leave the hall together, something in me wouldn't let them out of my sight. They stopped in a covered archway, their voices sharp against the storm. "You're reckless," Mira hissed, her words like venom. "Do you want to ruin everything we've built?" "I'm tired of this," Ryan shot back. His voice was raw, the edges frayed. "Of the lies, the games." It should have ended that night. That night? Mira laughed, bitter and low. "You mean the night I saved you from your own foolishness? You were going to throw everything away for her." My heart stopped. Mira stepped closer to him. "Sora was a weakness. You couldn't see it then. But I did what I had to do. For both of us." The blood roared in my ears louder than the rain. I clutched the edge of the wall, nails digging into the stone. Ryan's hands curled into fists at his sides. "You betrayed me." "No," she said softly, almost tender now. "I saved you. And I'm still trying to. But you keep chasing ghosts." I had heard enough. My body moved before my mind caught up, turning away, heart pounding, vision blurred by tears and rain. I didn't see the figure step from the shadows until it was too late. A hand grabbed my arm, yanking me into the narrowest part of the alley. Another hand reached for my throat. The man's breath stank of ale and rot, his grip bruising. "Thought you could walk these streets alone, did you?" He growled. I struggled, panic surging through me, but the wet stone beneath my boots offered no traction. Then, suddenly, he was gone. "Ryan." He slammed the attacker against the wall with a force that made the alley tremble. His sword was drawn, the blade's edge gleaming in a flash of lightning. "Don't touch her again," he snarled, his voice dangerous and low. The man fled, stumbling into the storm, leaving us alone. I stood there breathless, rain mingling with tears I couldn't stop. Ryan turned to me, his chest rising and falling with the effort of control. His hand lifted as if on instinct, brushing wet strands of hair from my face. His fingers lingered, just for a moment, but it was enough. Enough to break the walls between us. Enough to remind me of every time he had touched me like that before, when I was Sora, and the world had not yet shattered. His eyes searched mine, confusion and something deeper flickering in their depths. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice softer now. "No," I whispered. My voice trembled, but not from fear. For the first time in this new life, I saw the man I had loved. And for the first time he saw something in her that he didn't expect. We stood there, the rain falling around us, the city forgotten. And I knew, The hatred that had kept us apart was beginning to crack. The night was quiet, too quiet. Even the breeze seemed to hold its breath, as it passed through the jasmine vines that clung to the stone balustrade of the terrace. The air was thick with their sweet scent, and the stars, scattered across a velvet sky, watched in silent judgment. I stood alone, or so I thought, trying to steady the storm inside me. Mira's gaze had followed me all evening, sharp and suspicious, as if she could see through my skin and into my soul. I knew she was planning something. Some strike I couldn't yet predict. The weight of it pressed on my chest, but it wasn't what haunted me most tonight. It was him. The sound of boots on stone pulled me from my thoughts. "Lynne," Ryan's voice called softly. But when I turned, I saw his face in the starlight, and I knew he wasn't here for the mask I wore. He stopped a few steps away, his eyes searching mine. "Why do you look at me like that?" he asked, his voice strained. "Like you know me, like you miss me?" I tried to answer, but my voice caught. "You're not her," he said, almost to himself. His fists clenched at his sides. "Every time I see you, I tell myself to hate you. But I can't. Because when I look at you, I see her." He took a breath, and then, as if the truth burst from him without permission, "Sora." The name hung between us, a thread stretched thin, trembling. My heart broke and healed in the same instant. "Yes," I said, the word no louder than the night breeze. "It's me." Shock flickered across his face, then pain, then something like wonder. He stepped closer but hesitated, as if afraid I'd vanish if he touched me. "But how?" "I don't know," I whispered. "All I know is I woke up here, in this body, in this life, and I didn't know if I should tell you. I didn't know if I could." The mask I had worn for so long cracked, and everything inside me spilled out. The fear, the longing, the hope I'd buried so deep I thought it would never surface again. Tears welled in my eyes, but I didn't look away. "I thought you betrayed me," I said. "I thought you let me die. But I was wrong. I see that now." He exhaled slowly, as if the weight he'd carried all this time had finally shifted. And when he reached for me, this time I didn't pull back. The stars above seemed to burn brighter, and the jasmine's scent wrapped around us as if the night itself wanted to keep this moment safe. For the first time since my death, I felt whole. It didn't take long for the cracks in Mira's lies to split wide open. Together, Ryan and I laid bare the web she had spun. Letters hidden beneath floorboards, whispered confessions from those she'd manipulated, proof of deals made in the dark. The final blow came during a gathering of both our family's allies. Ryan spoke the truth with clarity and conviction, and I stood at his side, no longer afraid to be seen. Mira tried to fight back with venom-laced words, but the evidence was undeniable. The power she'd hoarded slipped through her fingers like water, leaving only her bitterness behind. When it was over, she was gone, banished from the world she'd tried so hard to control. But victory was only the beginning. With Mira's shadow lifted, I turned my attention to the life I now lived. The life that, somehow, had become mine to shape. The people who had once shrunk from Lynne's presence, now watched me with cautious curiosity. And little by little, I gave them reason to hope. I listened. I acted. When a servant was accused unjustly of theft, I intervened, demanding the truth be sought before punishment. The real thief, a visiting merchant's guard, was found, and the servant restored to his place. When the villagers came with requests, I heard them out. Where once Lynne would have turned them away, I walked among them, not above them. The house itself seemed to change with me. Windows long shuttered were opened, letting in sunlight that spilled across the stone floors. The air grew warmer, as if the house too was learning how to breathe again. And Ryan. He stayed. Not as an enemy, not as a stranger, but as the man I had loved and could love again. We rebuilt something fragile but real, day by day. His presence was steady, his gaze no longer burdened by guilt or hate, but lit with the quiet promise of a future we could make our own. There were moments, simple, perfect moments, that reminded me why I had fought so hard to uncover the truth. A hand held at dawn, fingers laced together as the world woke around us. A shared laugh over a meal, unguarded and free. A kiss beneath the jasmine vines, where the stars had once witnessed my confession. Now, as I stood in the grand hall, the windows thrown wide, the scent of spring in the air, I felt the weight that had crushed me for so long finally lift. The sunlight touched every corner, chasing away shadows that no longer belonged. And I knew, this was my redemption, my rebirth. And our story was just beginning.